The Dallas Mavericks could end up in the NBA Finals again, and Luka might win MVP. Welcome in or welcome back. We're talking about the reigning Western Conference champions, Dallas Mavericks, and the brilliance that is the backcourt of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and new addition, Klay Thompson. Now, this team is not without its faults, obviously. This kind of basketball that the Dallas Mavericks run with Luka at the helm doesn't seem to be able to work deep into the playoff. But I think that the further we get into Luka's career, the more he refines it and the easier it gets for that type of basketball to win games and win championships. There seemed to have been a trend in the West where you were kind of battening down the hatches and sticking to your guns and being able to be content with the pieces that you had last year. There were some marginal pieces around the edges, like the Denver Nuggets picking up Russell Westbrook, or the Minnesota Timberwolves making the trade for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. The Mavericks kind of fit into that same role. They kind of kept firm, except the addition of Klay Thompson. And that brings up another issue that I have, another concern that I have, and that is, what is Klay Thompson at this stage in his career? I want to look at the bright side of it first. The bright side is that because Luka and Kyrie are so good and so dynamic with the ball, that creates a lot of gravity toward them. You're sending doubles and sometimes triple teams at them just to get the ball out of their hands. And because of that, I would assume that Klay Thompson gets the most open looks that he's had since Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were on the same team. The biggest downfall of this acquisition, obviously, is the injury history that Klay has. I don't necessarily think that he's injury prone because the injuries that he did have seem to be freak accidents. But because of those injuries and because he's a little bit older, this defensive prowess, his defensive acumen that he brought to that Warriors team back in the day isn't necessarily there. He's no slouch and he's going to give effort. I just don't think that he has it in him to be the guy that will guard the best player on the other team anymore. And with this Dallas Mavericks team, that's really important because you don't have that dynamic wing, that dynamic guard type of player that can guard one of the best two-way forwards or guards in the entire league. You have decent defenders on the team. They're just not at the level that you need to be. So with this acquisition, I think you're losing out on a very good defensive piece. But again, because of the gravity that Luka and Kyrie create, I think that this offensive addition of Klay Thompson, where he can just stand in the corner, catch and shoot, he'd probably shoot 50%, maybe 15 points a night, and I think it's a really valuable pickup for them. We got to see last year how cohesive that starting five was, and bringing in Klay Thompson makes this kind of top-heavy. That does concern me because I don't really see a whole lot of bench depth for the Dallas Mavericks. And I mean this respectfully because I do like a lot of the players on the team, but we have a second-year Derek Lively. We have Najee Marshall, who I do enjoy, but not really sure how he fits into this puzzle piece in Dallas. We have Quentin Grimes, the same kind of thing. I like him. I think he's a good player, but what is he in this offense? We have a more mature, a probably less explosive Spencer Dinwiddie is a backup point guard. And then we have Jaden Hardy, who I think is good. He showed really good flashes throughout his tenure so far in Dallas. But again, we don't really know who this is. If we're talking about a playoff rotation, an 8 or 9 man rotation, I'm not sure that that bench actually helps them get over the hump. I think that this load would have to be carried by Luka and Kyrie like it was last year. And while I said that I think that this kind of play style, because Luka is getting better and better every day, I think that this could be eventually a way to win a championship. I'm just not positive that it's actually this year. But again, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that when you have the type of player that Luka Doncic is, someone who has been in an MVP conversation, and I don't mean like an online discourse kind of MVP conversation. I'm talking about a top 5 finishing MVP player literally every year since his second year in the league. I eventually think that he is going to break through, and I think that there are 2 players that could break through this year. One is SGA from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the other one is obviously Luka. I think that Luka may actually have the edge, though, because whether we like it or not, media plays a huge part in how we view the awards and how we view all NBA teams and all-stars and all those kind of things. I think because of Luka playing as well as he did last year and how he's presumably going to play this year, and the fact that he's coming off of a finals berth is really going to play favorably in the media's eyes this year. And there's a really good chance that even if SGA averages 32, 9, and 7, Luka is going to win the MVP because he's been there before. And I don't necessarily think that that is right, but I definitely think that Luka Doncic is overdue for an MVP award. As a matter of fact, last year I had him as my personal MVP. I think that the only real competition, the highest level of competition that the Warriors are going to face in the Western Conference this year is the Oklahoma City Thunder, because SGA is going to have an MVP caliber season. Chet Holmgren is only improving off of his rookie year last year. He's going to be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. And Jalen Williams is probably going to have an all-star season, not to mention the fact that they picked up Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and even not to mention more Lou Dort and Cason Wallace and Isaiah Joe and all these other pieces that they have on their team. I think they're going to be really tough out. They were able to do it last year. The Mavericks were able to knock out the Thunder last year. But this is going to be a brand new team for the Thunder, and barring some sort of injury or a lack of cohesion, I think they're going to be very tough out. All of that being said, I don't see this team being any worse than a 4 seed in the West. This team is usually pretty healthy. I know that there were a couple times where Luka was in and out with some nagging injuries last year, and he was banged up during the finals. But I think that with the summer that he had, even though he did try to compete for his country, I think that being rested up and having a good, healthy season this year is going to be Luka's top priority and the Dallas Mavericks' top priority. So there may be some instances where he is taken out of the game or he's going to skip a game due to some precautionary issues. But I still think that Luka is going to play enough games, A, to win the MVP award, and B, carry this team to like 55 wins or so. But what do you think of the Mavericks? Do you think Luka's going to win MVP? Let me know down in the comments below. Check my link tree while you're at it. Join my Discord. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. And I'll see you tomorrow.